Every morning, Maya Turner tied her apron with silent discipline, tucked her braids into a neat bun, and stepped behind the counter of Ellison's diner like a soldier reporting for duty. In many ways, that's exactly what it was. Her battlefield had simply changed. Ellison's was tucked between a bait shop and a worn-down gas station in a quiet corner of upstate Georgia. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills. The clink of forks, the hiss of coffee pots, the scuffle of boots across the tile, it was a rhythm she'd learned to move with, even when her heart beat out of sync with the world around her. She didn't flinch anymore when people stared too long at the scarring that laced her arms like melted wax. She didn't offer explanations when the kids tugged their mother's sleeves and whispered. She just served. Until that day. It started like every other Tuesday. The lunch crowd shuffled in, grumbling about taxes, gas prices, or the local high school's football record. Maya worked her section like clockwork, sliding menus across tables with that quiet, practiced smile. Her arms were exposed, like always. Georgia heat didn't allow much else. Jagged burn marks curled up her forearm and disappeared under her shirt, reminders of a fire most assumed was kitchen-borne. At 12:47 p.m., the door chimed, and a group of 4 leather-clad bikers swaggered in like they owned the place. They made noise, on purpose. Laughing loud, stomping hard. Maya approached, keeping her eyes on the notepad, not the smirks. The tallest one leaned forward as she poured their water. "Did you fall in a fire or just lose a fight with an oven?" The table erupted in laughter. Plates clattered behind her, but Maya didn't blink. She'd heard worse. She walked away without a word, jaw tight, throat burning with something worse than humiliation. Her coworker, Jenna, brushed past her. "You okay?" she whispered. Maya nodded. "It's fine." It wasn't. But Maya had learned to live with fine. She'd lived with it ever since the fire, ever since the incident. Ever since the silence. But the universe, in its cruel timing, decided today wouldn't be like every other Tuesday. The door chimed again. A man walked in. Gray-haired, tall, posture straight despite age. A U.S. Marine Corps cap rested on his head. His eyes were sharp, scanning, assessing, calculating in a way Maya recognized before he even sat down in the corner booth. She approached him, pen ready. Then she saw it. His gaze had locked on her left wrist. Not the burns, but what lay beneath them, a faded tattoo half lost to skin grafts. An emblem. A medic's mark, military issued, rarely seen outside of combat zones. And this man, he saw it. "Where'd you get that ink?" His voice wasn't mocking. It was low. Measured. Focused. The diner went quiet. Forks paused. Bikers looked up. Maya instinctively pulled her sleeve down. The man slowly stood, his face turning pale. 3rd Battalion. FOB Falcon. Am I right? Her mouth went dry. No one knew. No one was supposed to know. She hadn't spoken those words in years. But he had. And suddenly, she wasn't just a waitress anymore. Not to him. "Ma'am," he said, voice trembling now. "You saved my life." The laughter from the biker table dried up instantly. Chairs creaked as people turned. Jenna's jaw dropped. Maya blinked, unsure if this was a cruel dream. "You, what?" she managed. "I was in Falcon," he said, louder now. "Fallujah. November 2005. You were the one pulling bodies from that burning Humvee. You dragged me out." He saluted. Maya's world tipped sideways. Her knees almost gave out. But the man kept talking. Kept reminding her of a past she'd buried under years of coffee pots and burnt toast. But not everyone in that room was ready to believe it. The biggest biker stood up, red-faced and scoffing. "You? A soldier? Gimme a break. That ink's fake." Probably burned it on yourself to get sympathy tips. The old Marine's hand twitched toward his belt. You better watch your mouth, son. But Maya took a step forward. With trembling fingers, she unbuttoned the top of her collar. The room gasped as she revealed the edge of a massive, twisted scar that ran diagonally from her clavicle toward her chest. That's from shrapnel in Fallujah, she said. You want proof? It's written all over me. The biker faltered. She looked directly at him, her voice steady now. Call sign Echo 2. Blood type O neg. We lost Lopez, Trent, and Singh on that run. I carried their tags home. You weren't there. He was. She nodded to the Marine. Silence. It was as if the whole diner forgot how to breathe. The biker sat down. Slowly. And Maya? She stood taller. Not just a scarred waitress anymore. But something else. Something more. The quiet after Maya's revelation didn't feel like peace, it felt like stunned reverence. Even the grill stopped sizzling, as if the kitchen itself had taken a moment to absorb what had just happened. The veteran remained standing, his shoulders squared in silent honor. Maya could barely breathe. She hadn't spoken those names aloud in nearly 8 years. Not even in her VA therapy sessions. Singh, Lopez, Trent, they had haunted her dreams, followed her in the smell of diesel fuel and scorched canvas. Now, they lingered like ghosts above the chipped tile of Ellison's diner. The Marine's voice broke the silence. My name's Frank Delaney. Sergeant. Retired. 3rd Battalion, 1st Marines. Ma'am, I owe you my life. Maya nodded slowly, but her lips were tight. The weight of recognition wasn't comfort, it was exposure. And after so many years of hiding in plain sight, her soul felt raw. The biker who had mocked her before mumbled something and slunk toward the door. His friends followed. They left their food untouched, their bravado shattered and stuffed into the pockets of their leather jackets. No one stopped them. No one cared. Frank gestured to the seat across from him. If it's not too much trouble, I'd be honored to have you take my order. Maya blinked again, unsure whether her hands could even hold the pen. But she nodded and slid into the booth opposite him. Jenna stepped in quietly behind the counter, giving her a subtle nod that said, I got the floor. Go ahead. Maya whispered, coffee? Frank smiled. Always. As she poured, her fingers still trembling slightly, Frank leaned forward. I never forgot that day, he said. You pulled me out just before that second IED went off. I was half conscious, bleeding through my leg, and you dragged me like I weighed nothing. I remember, Maya said softly, her voice flat. I remember the smell. The fire. The screaming. Frank nodded, his throat working against some invisible weight. I've been trying to find the medic who saved me ever since I got out. No name, no records. Just a rumor about a female corpsman who never made it home the same. Maya swallowed hard. I didn't want to be found. She looked down at her wrist. The tattoo was almost gone now, faded into the maze of scars and skin grafts. I was medically discharged. No ceremony. No thanks. Just, a bus ticket home and a pamphlet on PTSD. Frank was quiet for a long time. The clink of forks slowly resumed across the diner. But now, people whispered for a different reason. The woman they mocked for years was something else, something sacred. You deserved better, Frank finally said. Hell, you still do. She gave a small, humorless laugh. Tell that to the folks who think I burned myself making pancakes. Frank's jaw tightened. I saw real combat nurses. I saw what you people went through. You were tougher than all of us combined. Maya stared out the window. I didn't want to be tough. I just wanted to be useful. Saving people was the only thing that made sense in all that chaos. But when I got back. Her voice trailed off. She didn't need to finish the sentence. Frank already knew. You got back, and the war didn't stop. She looked at him sharply. That was it. Right there. The sentence no one else had ever dared to say aloud. Yeah, she whispered. Frank sipped his coffee. You still wear the scars like you're hiding them. You don't need to. I'm not hiding them, she replied. I'm protecting the people around me. He raised an eyebrow. From what? She paused. From the truth. Frank leaned forward. Maya, people need the truth. Especially now. If they don't hear it from someone like you, they'll never understand what the cost of service really looks like. She hesitated, then nodded once. Maybe. As Frank rose to leave, he pulled a $20 bill from his wallet and placed it on the table. I'll be back next week. And the week after. You ever feel ready to tell your story, I'll be sitting right here. She watched him go, the little bell over the door jingling again as he stepped back into the world. By now, the diner was filled with a different kind of silence, a solemn one. Jenna approached carefully, eyes wide. Why didn't you tell me, she whispered. Maya shook her head. Would you have believed me? Jenna's face flushed. I don't know. But I sure wouldn't have laughed. For the first time in a long while, Maya smiled. Not the small polite smile she gave every customer, but a real one. Tired. Earnest. Maybe even grateful. I'm not looking for applause, she said. Just peace. Jenna gave her arm a gentle squeeze. You deserve that. Maya turned back toward the booth Frank had just vacated. His coffee cup still steamed slightly in the sunbeam cutting across the table. Her scars tingled under her sleeve. Maybe it was time. Maybe silence wasn't peace after all. The rest of the shift passed in a slow-motion blur. Every sound felt louder, every stare more pointed. The regulars were cautious now, approaching Maya with a mix of curiosity and guilt. Some left larger-than-usual tips, though none had the courage to say why. Maya didn't need them to. After closing, she stood by the sink in the back, slowly scrubbing a plate that was already clean. Jenna leaned against the wall near the prep table, arms folded, watching her. He really meant it, Jenna said softly. That man. Frank. You saved his life. Maya didn't look up. I saved a lot of lives. Lost more. But why keep it a secret? Maya set the plate down gently. Because people don't look at heroes the way you think they do. They look for uniforms and medals and white teeth giving speeches on Veterans Day. They don't see burned-up women scraping grease off a diner floor. Jenna opened her mouth to respond, then closed it again. Because she couldn't argue with that. Maya dried her hands. Besides, this place, it's quiet. Nobody asked about the scars, and I never offered the truth. That was the deal I made with the world. Well, Jenna said, pushing off the wall. The world just broke that deal wide open. They both laughed, short, awkward, but real. That night, Maya sat on her apartment balcony, staring out into the Georgia dusk. The crickets chirped. A truck engine growled somewhere down the highway. And Maya's fingers traced the ink on her wrist, what was left of it. 3rd Battalion. Echo, 2. She hadn't thought about the name in years. She used to say it like a prayer under her breath during combat extractions. Now it felt like a foreign tongue. Suddenly, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She hesitated. Then answered. Maya Turner, the voice asked. Speaking. This is Captain Elijah Nance, retired. I was with Logistics Command out of Kandahar. I got your name from Sergeant Delaney. I I believe you pulled my brother from a burning transport in 2007. Maya's breath caught. His name was Caleb Nance. She remembered. Barely 19, smiling through cracked lips, shaking from blood loss. She'd carried him 3/4 of a mile through sniper territory, refusing to let him bleed out in the dirt. Yes, she said. I remember him. The captain's voice faltered. He didn't make it. But he told us about you before he passed. Said he never saw anyone run like that through gunfire. He called you his guardian angel. Silence stretched between them like a bridge. I just wanted to say thank you, Elijah said. We never knew your name. Until now. Maya whispered, You're welcome. When the call ended, she sat still for a long time, staring into nothing. That one sentence haunted her, we never knew your name. So many of the people she'd saved never did. Some didn't live long enough to ask. Others couldn't speak. She'd been a ghost in the battlefield, and now she was a ghost in her own life. But something had shifted. The moment Frank recognized her tattoo, it was like the past cracked through the wall she'd built around it. The next morning, Maya arrived at the diner early. Frank was already waiting in his booth, a newspaper folded neatly beside him. He stood when he saw her. I brought something, he said. From a small brown envelope, he pulled a photo, crumpled, faded. It showed a young black woman in dusty fatigues, her helmet crooked, grinning despite blood on her cheek. Her arm was around a bruised, soot-covered Marine. They stood in front of a blackened Humvee. It was her. She stared at it in disbelief. You kept this? Frank nodded. I never forgot. Thought maybe one day I'd find you. Now I have. He slid the photo across the table. Don't stay invisible, Maya. You earned your place. Maya sat down slowly, fingers brushing the image like it might disappear. You really think anyone wants to hear this story? She asked, almost whispering. Frank didn't hesitate. They need to. Especially young women. Especially black girls growing up thinking strength only comes in the shape the world tells them it should. Maya looked up, her voice more certain. And scars don't make you broken. They make you a survivor. Something in her settled then. Not peace exactly, but clarity. She looked around the diner, the same one that once muted her into silence. Maybe it could be the place where her story finally spoke. By noon that day, the diner was busier than usual. Word had spread, quietly at first, like a rumor passed between slices of pie. But by lunchtime, folks were pouring in not for the meatloaf special, but to catch a glimpse of the waitress whose scars had turned into a legend overnight. Some pretended not to stare. Others didn't bother pretending. Maya could feel the shift in the air. She wasn't just Maya anymore. She was that soldier, the medic, the woman who saved a Marine. Her skin prickled under the weight of their eyes. And yet, something inside her stood taller. For years, she'd carried the silence like armor. Now, it was peeling away, slowly, painfully, but willingly. She still wasn't used to the attention. She doubted she ever would be. But she didn't hide her arms anymore. Not today. Frank returned, just like he said he would, and again sat at the corner booth. This time, he wasn't alone. A man in a pressed polo with a camera bag sat across from him. Maya, Frank called gently as she passed, meet Jordan Page. Reporter from the local paper. He's not here to bother you, just to listen, if you're willing. Maya stiffened. A reporter. The last thing she needed was to become a story people chewed on over coffee. But Frank gave her a look, steady, respectful. I told him if you weren't ready, he'd leave. Jordan stood, hand extended. Only if you're comfortable. I don't want a quote. I want your truth. What you choose to share. Maya looked down at her hands. The scars across her knuckles were deep and uneven, painful even now. She had hidden them long enough. Maybe it was time. "I'll sit," she said. Jordan smiled and slid his recorder forward. "Off the record. For now." She told him about Echo, too. About the first aid tents turned into morgues. About carrying men twice her size through enemy fire, the smell of burnt flesh so strong it lived in her clothes for weeks. She spoke of long nights under oil-black skies, of dodging mortars and praying she wouldn't die holding someone else's blood. She told him about the Humvee. About Caleb Nance's voice in her ear as she pulled him out, begging her not to let him die. And she told him about coming home. About the quiet VA office, the signatures that ended her service, the long ride on a Greyhound bus back to a town that didn't ask questions. The first job interview where they looked at her scars before they looked at her resume. The second. The third. Jordan listened without interrupting. Not once. And when she finally finished, he sat back in stunned silence. "Why didn't you come forward sooner?" he asked. She gave a tired smile. "Because it wasn't a headline to me. It was just my life." He nodded. "Can I write about it now?" Maya paused. "Only if you write it right." He promised. By the end of the day, the entire diner staff knew what had happened. Even Mr. Ellison, who rarely came out of his office, pulled her aside. "You should have told me," he said gently. "You would have believed me," she replied. His face flushed. "You're right. I wouldn't have. But I do now." The next morning, the article was everywhere. "The hero behind the apron, how a scarred waitress changed everything." Maya's photo was front and center, scars unblurred, posture strong. The comments poured in. Messages from other veterans. From former medics. From strangers who had survived because someone like her hadn't given up in the dust of war. But not everyone celebrated. Around 10:15 a.m., the bell over the diner door rang, and a sharply dressed woman in heels clicked her way across the tile. Her name tag read, Monica Glass, Regional Health and Safety Compliance. She moved with bureaucratic purpose and zero warmth. "I'm here regarding complaints about a waitress with visible burns handling food," she said curtly. Jenna's mouth dropped open. Maya, wiping a counter, turned slowly. "Excuse me. It's been reported by anonymous customers that your visible scarring could pose a contamination risk. We're required to evaluate such matters under state guidelines." Jenna snapped, "That's insane." Frank stood from his booth. "You're out of line, ma'am." But Monica was unmoved. Scarring and skin trauma can, in some cases, lead to infection risks. If not evaluated. "I've been cleared by a physician every year," Maya interrupted, voice like steel. "I wash more than any server in this building. If you're going to quote guidelines, you'd better quote the ones that matter." Monica raised a brow. "Then you won't mind showing medical documentation to prove." "She won't need to." A new voice cut in. A tall man in a blue button-up stepped forward, holding a badge. U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. "I'm Agent Dalton." Maya Turner served as a frontline combat medic under multiple command tours. "If there's a question about her medical condition, you'll direct it through us. Or you can direct it to the Department of Defense." Monica paled. He continued, "Also, your regulation. It applies to open wounds, not healed scarring. This visit is based on discrimination, not health and safety." The entire diner watched as Monica turned and, without a word, exited the building. Silence. Then the sound of Frank's coffee cup clicking gently against his saucer. Maya exhaled, barely realizing she'd been holding her breath. "Thank you," she whispered to the VA agent. He nodded. "You earned better than what they gave you. We're making sure you get it now." That night, for the first time since returning from the war, Maya didn't cry when she unwrapped her arms. She looked in the mirror and saw not just the damage, but the defiance. A waitress. A medic. A survivor. And finally, seen. 3 days after the article hit the newsstands, Maya's story had moved beyond Georgia. National veteran networks began sharing the piece. Social media exploded with messages of solidarity, some from soldiers who had served beside her without even knowing her name, others from complete strangers who had never stepped foot in combat but felt the tremor of her truth. But perhaps the most unexpected moment came the following Monday morning. Maya walked into the diner, her apron folded under one arm, ready to clock in. But as she turned the corner near the hostess stand, she stopped cold. Waiting near the corner booth, where Frank always sat, was a woman in a crisp navy dress uniform, her ribbons lined in meticulous rows across her chest, heels polished so bright they reflected the overhead lights. Her skin was the same warm brown as Maya's, her hair cropped short beneath a perfectly placed cover. "Maya Turner?" she asked, standing up straight. Maya blinked, glancing toward Jenna, who peeked from behind the kitchen window, just as stunned. "Yes." The woman offered a salute. "Commander Rebecca Trent. United States Navy. You saved my little brother, Corporal Devin Trent, 2006, outside Ramadi." Maya's mouth went dry. Trent. That name. She remembered it now. He'd been caught in an explosion near a supply route, his legs shredded, bleeding fast. She'd kept him conscious for 17 minutes while under sniper fire, singing gospel hymns into his ear as she pressed gauze into wounds that wouldn't stop bleeding. He didn't make it," Maya whispered, throat thick. Commander Trent gave a soft smile. "No. He didn't. But he died knowing someone gave him every possible chance to survive. And he wasn't alone. You were the last face he saw. That matters more than I can explain." Maya felt something crack inside her chest, something fragile, something old. A buried grief, dug up and turned to light. "I'm not here as an officer," Commander Trent continued. "I'm here as a sister. To say thank you. To offer this." She opened a small velvet box. Inside was a silver medallion. It bore the seal of the United States Navy, etched beneath the words, "Service Beyond Self." "It's not an official award," Rebecca said. "But it's given to medics and corpsmen whose actions went above and beyond the call of duty, even if the Pentagon never wrote their names into speeches." Maya stared at it like it might disappear. "I don't deserve this." "You do," Commander Trent said softly. "You always did. We just failed to see it." The entire diner had stopped moving. Even Mr. Ellison stood frozen in the kitchen doorway. Slowly, Maya reached out and took the medallion. It was heavier than she expected. She hadn't worn a uniform in almost a decade. But now, she felt like a soldier again. The next few weeks transformed her world. Veteran organizations invited her to speak. She was interviewed on a local radio station. A group of young black girls from the community center came in for milkshakes and asked to take pictures with her, not because of her scars, but because of her strength. Still, not all reactions were kind. One afternoon, a couple came in and asked to be seated in another section. "We don't want that one touching our food," the man muttered. Jenna stormed over, ready to confront them, but Maya held up a hand. Instead of arguing, she walked over, set down 2 menus, and said quietly, "You're being served today by a combat medic who held the hand of dying teenagers in foreign deserts. I'll bring you water, but if you want kindness, you might want to start by showing some." They blinked, flushed, and said nothing more. Afterward, Jenna wrapped her arm around Maya's shoulders. "You didn't have to be that gracious." "I wasn't being gracious," Maya said. "I was being true." Later that evening, as Maya stepped outside to get some air, she found Frank sitting alone on a bench near the diner's side entrance. He held a small, worn notebook in his lap. When he saw her, he smiled and patted the spot beside him. Got something for you, he said, handing it over. She opened the notebook to find page after page of names. Men. Women. Ranks. Locations. Each one dated. Some with stars drawn beside them. I've been writing down the names of every soldier or marine I've heard you saved, Frank said. From the ones I knew, to the ones who called after the article. You've been hiding from this for so long, I figured you should know what your silence was carrying. Maya felt tears burn her eyes. Every one of them had family, Frank continued. Most never knew your name. But they do now. The sun dipped below the horizon, bathing the parking lot in soft amber light. Maya held the notebook tightly to her chest. I used to think my story didn't matter, she whispered. Frank looked at her with quiet pride. Maya, your story saved lives. And now, it's saving hearts. She stood, pocketing the notebook, and turned toward the horizon. Her scars still ached. Some days more than others. But they no longer shamed her. They testified. And in the echoes of war, in the clatter of diner plates and quiet conversations, she finally heard something she'd long forgotten. Peace. The following weekend, the diner was packed beyond capacity. People lined the sidewalk waiting for a seat. Cars idled in the lot with windows down, passengers hoping for a table. Some brought flowers. Others brought framed pictures, photos of loved ones who served, or ones they lost. A few had tearful eyes, others held quiet reverence. It wasn't just a diner anymore. It had become something else entirely. And at the center of it all stood Maya Turner. Wearing the same apron she'd worn for years, but this time with the Navy medallion pinned just above her heart. Inside, the staff scrambled to keep up. Frank sat at his usual booth, calmly sipping coffee as a little girl nervously approached Maya, holding out a handmade drawing. Maya knelt. It's you, the girl whispered. My daddy said you're a real hero. Maya glanced at the drawing, a little cartoon figure with burn marks and a big smile, standing in front of a blazing sun. Thank you, she said gently. That's the bravest thing anyone said to me today. The girl beamed and ran off. Maya tucked the drawing into her apron. Later, as the day slowed into evening, a man entered who didn't belong. His suit was too crisp. His hair too perfect. And he wore the smug expression of someone used to having the last word. He stood near the door until Maya noticed him. Miss Turner, he asked. I'm Douglas Reed. I represent the Veterans Recognition Foundation. Maya raised an eyebrow. And? He smiled with politician polish. Your story's making waves. You're becoming a symbol. And, well, let's just say some people want to elevate your visibility. We're offering you a position. Spokesperson. We'd sponsor a national campaign, awareness, recruitment, fundraising. Maya blinked. You want me to be your poster girl? Douglas chuckled. You're exactly what America needs right now. Grit. Grace. Resilience. She crossed her arms. And what do you need? Visibility. Let's be honest. A black female combat veteran with a tragic backstory and burned scars. That's emotional gold. The air in the diner shifted. Frank stood slowly from his booth. Jenna looked up from the register. Silence spread like fire. Maya tilted her head. You think my pain is a headline? A product? Douglas raised his hands. I mean no disrespect. You've been through hell. Let us help turn that into purpose. I already have purpose, she said. Maya, think of the platform. I am the platform. His mouth twitched. She leaned closer. I'm not here to make your foundation look good. I'm here because I serve coffee to people who need warmth and food to people who need comfort. I tell my story on my terms. Not yours. Douglas's mask cracked for a moment, just a flicker of frustration. Then he smoothed it back on. "You're making a mistake." "No," Maya said. "I made mistakes when I let other people define my value. I'm not doing that again." She nodded toward the door. He hesitated, then turned and left. Frank walked up behind her. "You handled that like a general." Maya exhaled, tension leaving her shoulders. "He wanted my story. Not my truth." Frank smiled. "Same thing, to people who don't understand the difference." That night, after close, Jenna brought out a small cake from the back, a surprise she and the kitchen had been planning for days. It was plain white with the words, "Thank you for saving more than lives." Everyone clapped as Maya blushed and tried to hide behind her hands. "Speech," someone yelled. She shook her head at first, but then, slowly, nodded. She stood behind the counter, the same one she'd silently worked behind for years. "Most of you didn't know me before the article," she began. "Some of you, you only saw the scars. Or maybe you pretended not to." A few heads dipped. She didn't call them out. "I didn't blame you. I understand how hard it is to look at someone who reminds you that pain exists outside your bubble. But now, you all know." She looked around the room, then at the medallion on her chest. "These scars aren't decoration. They're stories. Some I'll never speak aloud. Others I will, when it matters. But none of them mean I'm less than you. And none of them make me more." She paused. The diner was silent. "I'm not a hero because I went to war. I'm not a victim because I came back scarred. I'm something in between, a survivor. Just like so many of you." Applause rose, not thunderous, but deep and real. Maya took a step back, blinking tears. Jenna whispered, "You didn't just survive, Maya. You changed us." And she had. This wasn't about a diner anymore. Or war. Or scars. It was about visibility. About humanity. About being seen not for what people assumed, but for who someone truly is when the world stops pretending. And now the world had finally started to see Maya Turner. 2 months later, the sign out front of Ellison's diner changed. The new one read, "Turner's Table." Mr. Ellison had offered it, entirely unprompted, after watching Maya's story reshape the entire town. "You made this place matter," he told her. "And it's yours if you want it." At first, Maya hesitated. The idea of owning something, of stepping fully into a life she hadn't planned for, terrified her. But then she looked at the notebook Frank had given her, still sitting by her bedside table, pages filling with new names. And she thought about the girls who visited her weekly now, asking about courage. About service. About scars. She accepted. Now, Turner's Table wasn't just a restaurant. It was a refuge. Veterans drove in from other counties just to have a meal there. Some brought keepsakes to donate to the memory wall that Jenna had helped her build, dog tags, photos, folded flags, boots, letters never sent. There was even a special table in the corner, Frank's booth, reserved every day. A small plaque read, "Reserved for those who remember." Maya started holding monthly storytelling nights. Anyone could come. Anyone could speak. Some shared tales of deployment. Others of losing someone. Many just needed to say out loud what they'd carried in silence. And through it all, Maya listened. Sometimes she spoke. Always, she stood tall. One crisp Sunday morning, a woman entered the diner with a cane and a soft smile. Her left eye was clouded, and her hand trembled slightly as she slid into a seat by the window. Maya recognized her instantly. Captain Elise Rowan. A former trauma surgeon who had worked alongside Maya in Kandahar. "I had to see for myself," Elise said quietly. "If the rumors were true." Maya brought her a cup of coffee. They're never true, she smiled. But I'm still here. Elise reached across the table and gripped her wrist gently. You were always more than the field medic. You were the soul of that place. You kept us human. Maya swallowed the lump in her throat. I thought I lost that part of myself. You didn't. You brought it home. Later that night, as the sun dipped low and cast golden light through the windows, Maya stepped outside to breathe. The streets were quiet, the air warm. She looked at the scar on her arm, at the tattoo nearly erased by time and fire. She remembered Fallujah. Ramadi. FOB Falcon. She remembered the screams, the smoke, the blood. But she also remembered the lives. The way a young man squeezed her hand before he passed. The laughter of soldiers around mess tables. The feeling of purpose when everything else burned. And now, this diner. This life. These people. It wasn't a return to what was. It was a resurrection. She heard footsteps behind her. It was Frank. You gonna finally get some rest? He asked, sipping from a to-go cup. Maya smirked. Eventually. He looked at her, really looked. You know, all this started with someone laughing at your scars. She nodded. They thought the burns were a punchline. They weren't, Frank said. They were a testimony. She looked down the quiet street, the sign for Turner's table glowing in the dusk. They still are. He nodded once and walked off down the sidewalk. Maya stood there for a long while, hands in her pockets, the wind brushing past her shoulders. A car drove by slowly, someone from out of town, craning to see the diner they'd read about. And somewhere deep inside her, something clicked into place. She had lived through fire. Now, she fed souls. And the scars? They were never shame. They were scripture. Proof she'd walked through hell, and built a home on the other side. Thank you for watching this powerful story on True Echo. Today, we met Maya Turner, a woman the world overlooked, mocked, and misunderstood. But when her scars were finally seen for what they truly were, everything changed. Because sometimes, the deepest strength is written in the places the world tells us to hide. Remember this. Scars are not signs of weakness. They are proof that we survived when others couldn't. If Maya's story moved you, please like, share, and subscribe to True Echo for more real, inspirational stories that reveal the quiet heroes among us. Drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. We love seeing how far our stories travel. And if you or someone you know has a story worth telling, we want to hear it. Until next time, stay strong. Stay true.